video we'll be talking about Ashes Lie Still by Ingested, a deathcore band from the UK. They've been active since late 2000s. This album was released on November 4th through Metal Blade Records, and Ashes Lie Still is their 7th album. I went into this album with some hesitation because it was a band I did not know too well, and with this genre, deathcore, sometimes I have a hard time getting into bands or maybe just getting into the album. So for example, the most recent Lorna Shore album was one I didn't really like that much, but let's just say upon first listen, I thought it was not too bad. I think this band has a way of structuring their songs so that the heaviness is not too overwhelming. There are elements of other genres of metal, and they add in some melody to their songs. It also helps that the songs were all kind of like a standard length of about like 3 to 5 minutes. You can tell when one song starts and the other one begins, despite the fact that all the songs are very brutal deathcore songs. They also have some guests on a few songs. So the opening track, Ashes Lie Still, has a female vocalist, Julia Frau. So her addition to the song adds a different element to their core sound, and still heavy deathcore riffs, but the vocals are very brutal and they can be very guttural at times and sound somewhat evil. On this first song, the listener is just battered with like these heavy staccato riffs and some atmospheric passages. The album continues with Shadows in Time. It's a very heavy, brutal song filled with blast beats and low guttural vocals. This is the type of song that exemplifies what the band does. They give you some heavy breakdowns, but they weren't annoying like that other band I mentioned before. But some of the vocals sound just like these like evil goblin style vocals, and a lot of modern metal bands, they like to use that these days. I also liked how these are not just brutal slam riffs, but they add in some stuff in the background and it kind of gives you a little more melody, but at no time do they lose the brutal nature of the song. There are also times when you get some riffs that sound a little more like traditional thrash metal. So for example, the song You'll Never Learn has an intro that reminded me of that, but make no mistake, it's still heavy and massive deathcore. They knock you over with their down-tuned guitar riffs, and they even add in some harmonics just to add some variety. The songs on this album do not always move at breakneck speed. They're not afraid to slow down at times, such is the case of the song Tides of Glass. It has a slow atmospheric intro. But that intro is short and they continue with brutal heavy riffs. So in the song, one of the lyrics is, could you be my angel on tides of broken glass? And my interpretation of this is that when you feel like you've hit the bottom, you don't know who to trust, you start to wonder if the person in front of you is just there to pick you up. So we get to the middle of the album and we get another song with a guest. The song is called From Hollow Words, and it features Sven de Calloway. I kind of had to look up who he was, and he's the vocalist of a similar band called Aborted. So he adds this like double dose of brutal vocals to the song. This one is dark, it's dirty, it's filthy, it's evil sounding, and if you like heavy deathcore, you'll like the song. Lyrics deal with someone who is a liar and how they affect the ones around them. So moving on, they slow it down a bit for Sea of Stone. It has a slower pace. Not saying it's doom metal, but a little slower. It's still very brutal. The song is very dark. It deals with the idea of death. It's dark and heavy. It has some atmospheric parts, and that adds to the variety of the album. They continue with another guest, Matt Heafy from Trivium, and it's another song with a slow atmospheric intro called All I've Lost. It's well placed in the album. It helps build suspense as the song progresses. Like the others, there are still heavy riffs that the kind you would expect. Having Matt on a song gives the song another layer of sound. You get some screams, dark vocals, gutturals, some choir vocals, and just a lot going on. I would say this is one of the more melodic songs, but it still has walls of heavy riffs and vocals. You still get some of those brutal thrash-style riffs on a song With Broken Wings. This one has some very sick and brutal vocals with both the low guttural and those evil, demonic-sounding vocals. You also get a heavy dose of blast beat drumming on this song. I like the song because they use some more traditional chunky riffs, the kind of more accustomed to. when hearing the other bands I listen to, but they don't sacrifice their sound when doing this. At this point, we're moving towards the end of the album. The song Echoes of Hate is another song that has a slow building intro and continues with a slower pace. The guitar riffs are what you would expect. Thick and heavy down-tuned riffs. They play some traditional death metal with some tremolo picking and faster drum beats. I thought it was a good song. They use a little more melody on this one, and they have some atmospheric breakdowns. It's another song where they use the figure of a liar as the basis of the song's lyrics, one of the common dark themes on the album. We're at the second to last song now. It's called Scratch the Vein, and this one starts with near silence, but they begin with a clean guitar riff, and it continues with slow doom metal style riff, and it's played very heavy with distortion. They use some sound textures and some dark vocals, and it goes into an almost black metal territory. Lyrics are dark and depressing and describes a person at wit's end. The thing that stood out for me on this song is the use of different types of vocal styles and some very melodic lead guitar playing. The final song is a remix of one of the singles called Rebirth, and it's just fast, heavy, brutal deathcore. It's the kind of song that just starts and just knocks you over. It's pretty cool. They have some pinch harmonics in the guitar riffs. And in the lyrics, the first line of the song, they say, broken, bleeding, battered, and screaming. And that's kind of how you feel listening to the song. It might not sound like a good thing, but that's kind of what metalheads like. We like this kind of thing. And so in the end, it's a decent album. It's not breaking any new grounds, but better than many of the other deathcore albums I listened to this year. I think the album, it's consistent. I wouldn't skip over any songs. And I didn't feel completely exhausted like I did with the Lorna Shore album. So it's a good length. The songs are perfect length. The production is good. You hear some variety in the songs. I think one problem with this genre is that sometimes everything sounds the same, but I felt they added enough variety and tempo changes to make it interesting. So my final score is 7.5 out of 10. Let me know in the comments what you thought. And up next, I have just more stuff. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. See you all in the next one.